Hi friends, Pastor K.C. here, Director of Family Ministries at Foundry. It is awesome to be with you for Good Noon. I am also on my phone again today because my computer is not wanting to be helpful. So we will do this way, and I will wait for some kind of indication that people are joining and with us. I want to commend to you our Sunday service as I normally do. Yesterday's worship was phenomenal and unbelievably powerful, and so I hope that if you haven't tuned into that you will take an opportunity to view that either here on Facebook or on YouTube. Like I said, it was a wonderful worship experience. I want to announce something really exciting. So for our parents and kids, we are going to put together a Foundry Kids summer bag, which will have some curriculum that's centered around compassion. It'll have sort of pre-made craft supplies for the crafts that are a part of that curriculum. And we're going to distribute those the second week in July. And so we're really looking forward to that. Actually, our ASP youth are going to help pack those bags. So that's also going to be super duper exciting. Looks like we are up and rolling, so that is good. I was thinking about what I wanted us to talk about today, and I started thinking about faith, right, which is one of these words that finds itself on all kinds of home decor, also on tattoos. It's kind of like a big word for a broad concept. And generally it brings about like some good feelings, but I was noticing when I was thinking about faith this morning that I wasn't sure about the feelings that I was actually having about faith. And so sort of a poem just kind of developed, and I wanted to share it with you. This poem is called Periscope. I've been thinking a lot about faith lately. How honestly sometimes faith means holding on by one tiny thread, one insignificant little sliver, one singular shred. How so often when faith is necessary, it's because things are crumbling and we find ourselves pleading. And the fraction of faith that we have left is so small, so inconsequential, so fleeting. And faith is about perspective too. We often talk about it more than we do it. Although, how does one really do faith anyway? How do we show up and continue to believe when bodies continue to be broken every single day? When will there be reprieve? It begs the question, what do we really know about faith, about belief, about unconditional love, about goodness and mercy and justice and strength? What happens when we've lost hope, when it falls out of arm's reach, when it seems like it's one thing after another and it couldn't have been written any better, and the rain keeps coming down and the attic keeps getting wetter? What happens then when our faith seems so very thin? We keep showing up and doing the work and answering the call, or we paint our doors black and we watch our houses fall. And then at other times, our faith is almost translucent, like everything is passing through it, but we don't necessarily have to heed it, because sometimes we can't even notice faith unless we need it. And we assume it's there because we go to the right places and we say the right prayers and we know how the game works like all the best players. And really our faith is a ghost, something that lurks in the shadows waiting like a host who is ready for us to actively start participating in the foundational work of faith. A faith that cannot be swept aside or torn, a faith that transcends words, a faith that can hold shelter up through a storm. The result of faith is always restoration of humanity. It always helps us feel less alone. It's a fiber optic connection cable that links us to one another face to face, which makes us less prone to disparaging one another, to dividing ourselves up, and to questioning who we are created to be. Talk about being set free. If we just hold on, if we keep showing up, if we pay attention to the ghost of faith in the corner, nudging us to continue the work of holy dissension, we might remember that at one point, no one believed. At one point, the doors were dark and the tomb was full, and faith lurked only as a ghost, unrecognizable through grief, and it seemed there would be no relief. Until it came, the third day. Someone saw it. All it took was one small ray, refracting out of that pit. Light. And so if we've already gathered our paint and are ready to brush our door frames and continue building our enceinte, or ready to set everything aflame, if we feel all consumed and altogether unhopeful, if everything feels doomed, here's one proposal. Just wait. Wait for faith. And look, here comes faith now. The holy dissenter himself, wrapped in a shroud, around his waist a tool belt, to reassure our faith, to shout prophetic hope, to make our shelter more safe, to build a brand new periscope. Let us pray. God, I think sometimes we love the idea of faith. Sometimes we aren't sure how to put it into action. We want it to be near, and yet sometimes we aren't sure how to recognize it when it shows up. We aren't sure how to engage it with the work that we know still needs to be done. We aren't sure how to couple faith with the pain that is happening all around us every day. God, we know it's real. We know that we are called a people of faith. Reactivate in us a childlike faith. Give us a foundational understanding of what it means to love and to trust in the resurrection, and to know that death does not have the final word, and that we don't necessarily have to paint our doors dark and to watch our houses fall, but that, God, we can continue to work every single day, and that faith can hold our hand through the work, and that we are not alone. And that faith, in fact, goes before us and behind us and through us in ways that we couldn't possibly understand. That faith is restoration, and that faith continues to show up, and that death does not beat or best faith. And God, when we see faith written on our home decor or on our bodies or in places where we are supposed to be uplifted, may we be reminded of something that is not really just this effervescent idea, but something that is grounded in us, that is deep within our souls, something that we cannot be separated from. And as we continue to show up and do the work, God, give us hope. Give us hope and peace and respite. And be our shelter. In the name of the Holy Trinity, we pray together. Amen. So I have been, earlier on, was starting to have some kind of activity or something that you could do with kids after the good noon. And so I thought about this morning about how we have this wonderful divine being that inhabits our kids all the time. And sometimes it just needs an avenue to be let out. And poetry is that avenue. And it's interesting to do that with kids. So I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And with my 5-year-old this morning, we talked about rhyming and words that sound the same, which is just some of the building blocks that we can use to talk about what poetry looks like. We also talk about feeling words and trying to explain feeling with other things like weather or something like that. All of those are ways to sort of build the language of poetry. And then with older kids, sometimes it's just really great to give them a concept or an idea and give them a pen and let them go, because they can teach us all kinds of wonderful and amazing things about the divine that inhabits them that we couldn't possibly ever know. So that's something that you can do with your kids if you would like to. And it's been awesome to be with you. I hope that you'll stay tuned to our Facebook page for updates. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. you'll be with Pastor Will for Wandering Toward Wonder, so I hope that you'll tune in for that. And also, I want to remind everybody about our WIN action. It's a virtual action where we're trying to get over 100 people to show up from Foundry. That'll happen on July 2nd. You can register on the registrations page in Church Center, and so I'll invite you to do that as well. Again, stay tuned. Peace, love, good noon, everybody.